Welcome everybody to the D&D show, the Dan and Doug show. This is a little bit of a different show than we usually do. Usually we're doing a deep dive on some form of repair technique or some method of repair, subject having to do with repair. Today we have a special show planned because the Looth group has its first official sponsor, which is Total Vise. Jeff Howard at Total Vise has been kind of a mover and shaker in the guitar tool world for some time, and he's developed a deep relationship with many of us in the Looth group, and he's wanted to extend that relationship to the Looth group in some formal fashion. We're now doing that, and this show is in the spirit of that relationship. And when we decided we were going to have sponsors of the Looth group, it was we envisioned a different relationship than that of a traditional advertiser with, a target audience, for the lack of a better word or a better phrase. Rather than saying, okay, you're just going to be an advertiser, we envisioned a relationship with a vendor where there could be a two-way street between the vendor and the Looth group. And that's what the whole idea of this came about. Later on, we're going to show you some of that infrastructure on the website where members of the Looth group are going to be able to interact with Total Vise through the website and have a two-way street to be able to work with one another. But we'll show you that in a little bit. So today we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive on one of the kind of the what has become one of the kind of premier tools that in the guitar world that was the creation of a cooperation between Jeff and I, and that's what's become known as the Proper's Guitar Workstation. So we're going to show you a little bit about that. We're going to show you different ways you can use it. We're going to talk about different ways that we each use it in our shops, and in an effort to try to both show you the tool for those who don't have one and all of the things you can do with it, or a bunch of the things you can do with it. I don't think if we had a show that was 10 hours long, we could show everything you could do with it, but we're going to try to show as much as we can. And how to get the most out of it, or try to get the most out of it, as well as some tips and tricks and cool things that some of us have been doing with it. We're also going to try to show off some of the creativity that has kind of blossomed around this tool. But first, let me start by welcoming Dan. Dan Erlewine, how are you?
I'm doing good, Doug. Hi, everybody.
Now, I'm also going to welcome with us a special guest, Luke Heaton from Whittlesticks you're in Cedar
City, Utah.
Cedar City, Utah. How are you, Luke?
Good. Thanks for having me.
So, Dan, your relationship with Jeff started probably about the same time as mine did, probably around 2018 or so. Because unbeknownst to me at the time, when I contacted Jeff, I thought he was a company that had been around for quite a long time. I didn't realize at the time that he only started his company around, 2017, 2018. Is that right, Jeff? When did you start Total Vise?
Yeah, very limited. Yep.
Okay. So you started your relationship with Jeff independent of my relationship with him around the same time, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that right, Dan?
You might have been in there a bit before. I wasn't aware of Total Vise until Blake Burkholder, that works with me, saw it online. And right away I said, whoa. And I called up Total Vise and found Jeff Howard. Jeff said, hey, just the guy I want to talk to, because he had sent Total Vise to Stu Mack, and I wasn't even aware of it for maybe a year. In other words, Total Vise stuff was sent to Stu Mack, and I had retired and sitting down there in the basement in the facility. And when I found out about it, I went ahead. I'd already bought one by the time I realized that Stu Mack had a whole load of things down there that some of which nobody had seen. And I took a lot of that because they weren't going to get into the product or didn't have time. I still wish they would have. And I brought that stuff home. And what was usable for me, I used. I'm going to show one thing today when I do my little video show. But that's how I got into it. Then I met you, and you were working like crazy with it, and we all went back and forth with lots of ideas, and that's been a number of years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I have Total Vise stuff all over my shop. A lot of it's under benches and stored away. When I need it, I get it out. It's hard to have enough room for the many things that we like to use.
Yeah, I have more blue hardware throughout my shop than almost anything else, and I love it. Luke, you you're an interesting character as it relates to the workstation, because it's one of those tools that, before we get, and I'll tell a little story in a little bit about how it came about, but you were one of those guys who, you saw it and you jumped into the deep end of the pool without even checking to see if there was any water in it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I
Right
do things.
away. So to tell us a little bit about what how you
Well, that's when, I joined the Looth group. It's only been about 2 years, year and a half, 2 years ago now. So I'm fairly new to it still. And that's when I saw it here doing some stuff. And I was, the first thing when I saw it was like, I bet I can hook a cello to that, or I bet I can hook a bass to that, because basses where I work on stand-up basses all the time, and they're just a beast, and it'd be great. As soon as I saw the manipulation where you could tilt it, I was like, okay, I'm sold. How do I hook a bass?
right.
And so that was kind of the start of me jumping in. And then the first thing I did was like, okay, now I got to make jigs for it to hold this thing that was never meant to hold. And and then I talked to Jeff, and we came out with a hold down for the end, and I've come up with 3 or 4 other ways to hold bases to it. And I've had pieces of bases attached into it because I didn't have enough of the base left to attach to. Like I've come up with rigs that they're very specialized for. This is one of them. So I took an extension and put a swivel on it and 2 hooks.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can slide that onto one of the cross tees, and you can grab a hold of a curved edge, just like the back edge of a bass or a cello, and
Yeah,
just hold on just to the back.
sure.
And I had 4 of these, so you could just latch onto a single plate and just have
Mm-hmm.
it suspended, and then be able to manipulate it.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the things that's fascinated me about this tool. And there are 2 aspects that leapt to my mind as you were talking. Is that one is that working with Jeff Howard is, I found him to be one of the most responsive vendors I've ever come across, because he's one of these guys who, like a lot of us, is a tinkerer at heart. And the workstation has quickly become a tinkerer's tool. If you can come up with a way of doing something with it that it wasn't even intended for, it allows you to do that. I remember when it first came out, I think of some of the first people who had gotten it, was one of the guys was Eb Stewart out of Texas. And he, about a week or 2 after he had it, he posted this picture of him in his shop with an upright bass hanging upside down in it. And I was like, oh my God. you know, and it was a little bit of it was a very cool picture. But it kind of dawned on us that this thing had legs, in a fashion that if you can think of a way to use it that you haven't used it before, and that's still going on. I still, every week or 2, I see some post on Instagram of somebody doing some crazy thing with the workstation that I never even thought would be achievable. James Rodman is another one who does incredible things with it. Not the least of which is riding it in his shop. I should have loaded that picture to just to tease James with. So one of the things was that struck me when I was thinking about that is how responsive Jeff is to ideas as it relates to it. In fact, he just sent me one of these in the mail, which was one of your kind of creations, or one of your ideas for being able to work on a mandolin or an archtop with a tailpiece, that if you don't want to remove the tailpiece and if you don't want to grab down on the tailpiece, this will stick on either one of those sides. And so
and this one actually came about for the violin.
That one came about for the violin.
Yeah, so this was designed for the violin and viola in mine because I have a chin rest attached to one side. And see, mine has the that yours doesn't has the articulation.
Oh, you're holding out on me here.
Yeah, so I know Jeff he's got this one in his back pocket still. But
hey Jeff, how come mine don't show?
So anyway, so that one, this is one of one. There's one of these so far. So
okay,
but yeah, and this was like rendition, I don't know, 4 or 5. We went back and forth through several different models.
Yeah, and there will be those that they will hit the website, right, Jeff?
Yeah, I think it's.
He said yes. He said yes.
We'll answer for him. The one trick with them is you do have to put them in a side one of the high supports. Yeah. So you can't, with your articulation, you can't use the standard guitar one because you'll have the 2 knobs in the way.
Right. Okay.
So you got to throw it in a side in one of the highest neck supports.
Yeah, and then that leads me to the other point I was thinking about while you were talking, is that the whole creativity part of this, where you see Dan coming up with some of the stuff he's come up with, it, adapting it in ways that it will almost allow you to do anything you want, where you're using it for string instruments, cellos, basses, and violins and all of that kind of stuff. But I also see you, coming up with, and you're going to go over some of the stuff you come up with later. You're also now creating stuff to use with the workstation that people can purchase at the Looth Group website that will allow you to do things,
refine it.
Yeah, refine it in ways that creating accessories it almost creates this ecosystem around a tool that has its own, all of these satellite things. And I've been fascinated with seeing people use all sorts of different things. I think Eric Collier was the first one to come up with using perforated tubing to attach stuff to it in a quick and easy fashion. And Nate Wood was the first one to then use those perforated tubing with spool clamps, which led to, some of the things you're going to show today, and, so we're gonna take a peek. I think let's start just by me showing off the basics of the workstation before we get into the deep dive stuff on it. And so I'll do just a brief introduction of what the video, not a video, but of what the workstation looks like. And then we'll go to Dan's video. And then then after Dan's video, I can do a demo on how to do string tension. And then we'll just kind of unpack this because we haven't planned this. We'll try to unpack this as organically as we can. Hey, Ian, can you pin the Doug Trinit camera as a centerpiece? Is Ian there? Is Ian with us? Or did he go out for lunch?
Are we changing cameras?
Yes, we are. We're changing to the Doug Trinit camera.
1 second. Where's at the door? Doug Trinit. Oh my God. Can you
You want me to move the camera?
Yep.
It's here.
All right.
You got it? There
Yep.
we go. So here is the workstation in its basic form. This is the workstation as it sits. I don't know. I have a number of them right now. This looks like JFK Airport where all of the planes are on the tarmac. So let me unplug that. So we've got a number of workstations that we're going to look at. This is, I don't know if this might actually be the prototype. I don't remember, but this might be one of them. So this is the whole idea behind the workstation as it sits. The ability in which you can remove and place a guitar into the workstation goes pretty quick. That's as quickly as a guitar moves in and out of the workstation. This is how the workstation comes when you get it. It comes in pieces. All of these pieces slide on and off the main rail. So all of these pieces are not only interchangeable, but you could change the order in which they're in, how many of them you have on. If you get some accessories, you could put them on there and what have you. But this is the workstation. You have, when it comes in this fashion right here. And there were some decisions we made early on that we decided to keep it almost in skeletal form rather than prick it out with all sorts of fancy stuff, because it's, as I was mentioning before, it has become a tinkerer's tool. This is the peg head support. And in fact, this might be one of the prototypes because this is currently attached. The current version of this has, if we can see here, I don't know if that's too shaky or not, but this has a detachable peg head support, so this can actually slide off. That was one of Dan's ideas that came with that. When the original one had this one welded on, later we came to the idea that it was a really good idea that Dan had to be able to have this remove it so you can move pieces off of either end without having to move it off the center T. Just a quick anecdote about how this thing came to be. You've seen me do conversations or demonstrations on the Looth group about this bench. I have had what I affectionately refer to as my fretting bench forever, that I do most of my fretting at. I do most of my fingerboard planing. I may hammer frets away from this, but I do certainly level frets here. I can simulate string tension, and that kind of a setup is something that I've used in almost some version or another of every shop that I've had. I don't like resting guitars on the neck. I don't like resting guitars on the neck here. I rest guitars on the peg head, and I work a guitar up off the bench in a prone position when I'm doing frets. We have, my current version of this has a telescoping peg head that allows me to change the height for the guitars, and I can have whatever length of instrument I have when I'm doing my fret work here. I can work and not worry about tools on the bench. I don't have to worry about the detritus from the guitar or the fret dust or anything else, on the bench top where the guitar is lying in it. And I've shown this before, and there's no reason to go into it in huge detail here. But the way this all came about was that after we started working with Jeff, helping him field test his tools, coming up with ideas in order to either improve them or other tools that he could add to his catalog, we were involved in, some of the vices in terms of making them friendly for the guitar world, and basically having a relationship. And this is another thing that I found really interesting about Jeff, was he was interested in learning how guitar guys work, and not just making a tool and saying, here it is. You know, how do you guys work on guitars? All of these, by the way, this is, you know, this is the one of the blue bench areas where there are a number of vices. Here's the number 10. These are number 5s. This is the number 7. This one is something that's in development. This is a new vice that Jeff has created for, I think he calls it the armorer's vice or something like that. And we're in the process of trying to figure out the best way to adapt it for the guitar world. This is a very cool vice, by the way, that just as an aside, just for kicks and giggles, I want to show off. This vice here tilts back and forth on that axis. It has a center jaw that opens on a center lead screw. So if you were to want to, like, say, put a neck in there, it's got a tilting vise in the back of the jaw, so it will conform to almost any shape. Once you get whatever you want locked in there, just close up the jaw. Once you get it locked in there, this whole vise will then spin 360 degrees on a center post. So this is something that Jeff and I have been currently toying with, and I've been doing some field testing for him, that there's probably going to be a guitar version of that comes down the pike soon. But we have a number of vices there. The original Erlewine neck jig tilt mechanism was one of the things we worked on together. And when I first met Jeff, this is what I was interested in. This was one of his original tools, which is known as the crossover vise. It's a vise for vices. And this is what led me to Jeff when we first met. I hated every vice I owned, and I wanted to get involved with him because I really wanted this vice. And that's what led to our relationship as it's been, blossomed to today. So we've had a really good relationship with Jeff. Here's some more blue stuff. These are some of the early prototype number 7s. There's another crossover back there. There's the arm and knuckle package back there. Here are a bunch of vices that I don't even use anymore and are either going to wind up at a garage sale or something. And so Jeff and I were on the phone one day talking about something, as Jeff and I always are. We talk some weeks, several times a week. And he had said something to me that I thought was very, very nice of him to say, but I didn't know what to make of it at the time. And he said, Doug, he says, you've done so much for us that I really want to be able to, thank you. He says, if there's ever anything you need that you don't have the wherewithal to do or make yourself, or you need something welded or have a special thing in mind, just let me know and I'll make it for you. And I always found him very responsive that way for special requests. And I said, I appreciate it. I don't necessarily have anything that comes to mind, but if I do, I'll take you up on it. And one day we were chit-chatting, and he made the offer again. And I said, well, I don't know that I have anything in mind, but I appreciate the offer. And then I stopped in my tracks, and I realized I was staring at what I wanted to request from him, which was this. I was looking at my bench and I said, you know what? There is something I think I would want you to make for me. And he said, yeah, what's that? And I sent him a picture of this, what we're looking at right now, which is my bench, my fretting bench that we just talked about. And he says, what do you mean? I said, I would love to have a duplicate of this. I don't, and at the time I had just finished with, well, had a guitar in there, not dissimilar to what is here, but I think it was a Martin with a non-adjustable truss rod, and I had it jigged up to be able to simulate string tension against the bench and pull down on the body. And I had a call from another customer earlier that said, "Oh, I know I'm not trying to rush you or anything, but I've got a gig coming up, and I'd really like to get my guitar back that you're working on. I know I only left it with you a few weeks ago, but I'd really be, this gig just came up, and is there any way?" And I said, "Well, let me see if I can do it." And I came over to where I was working at this bench, and I would have had to put that customer's guitar in this bench if I were going to get it started early enough to get it done for him. But I already had a guitar already jigged up in here, and it was like, oh, geez, if I take this guitar out to start his, then I'm going to have to come back and start this one all over again. So then Jeff called, and I got distracted by that conversation. I said, you know what? It would be really nice if I could have a separate one of these that I could figure out how to put into my pedestal, which I had at the time. We had a number of his pedestals in the shop, which I think is the best pedestal, not only in the business, but on the planet. This is the Total Vise pedestal. It could stop a tank, and it's one of the most versatile pedestals. I don't know if I can lower this to get down there. It's one of the more versatile pedestals around. The whole thing about Total Vise is that you have a universal docking station, which is his universal dock, which practically every Total Vise, well, let me just grab this. Every Total Vise tool, whether it's a vise, whether it's a crossover, whether it's anything, will go into this dock. This dock, which is there, is the same receptacle as his quick dock stations. That's the same receptacle that's in his other receptacles, whether that's that or the swing pedestal, which is another creation of his, which looks like this, and that mounts to the bench and swings. I can't swing it now because there's something in it. But any of these devices all dock universally in this 1 3/4 inch tube and sleeve design, and even his crossover has the same thing. So I said I would love to be able to have this setup that I could just drop into my pedestal, so I could work on 2 guitars at once while fretting it. I didn't have to take this guitar out in order to start another guitar if I wasn't finished with this guitar. And that's what led to the Workstation. And he said, well, let's see what we can come up with. We went back and forth with a number of drawings, and eventually this is what transpired. This was the first prototype of that conversation. And when I tell you this happened in a matter of days, that's not an exaggeration. I had this within a week of him and I first deciding what we were going to do with it. So that's the Workstation. You have a peg head support that mimics what was at my bench. You have these jacks, or supports, that we call them jacks, but they're different sizes for up underneath the shoulders of the guitar, the head block. This is for the neck. You can have multiple ones on here if you'd like. You have a cross beam support, which was to mimic the wedge that we saw over there. And these are all slidable to be able to be at whatever length you need for whatever instrument. These pieces here, and this is one of the things I mean about being a tinkerer's tool. You know, and you'll see here the original feet that they come with were here, which I love. They're great, but I wanted for some guitars, I wanted something that would pivot with the guitar or be able to be much lower, and I could put, you know, different tools on there for different lengths or different heights. You could try different things. There was a period of time where I wanted to be able to use a surrogate body with a Strat style guitar. So I quickly made up something that could go on the crossbeam that I could attach a body to, and just have my fender neck attached to there, and I didn't have to have the body at risk while I was working on the guitar. That was one of the first things I made for the Workstation, and that's what it generally looks like. We decided early on to make some decisions about the simpleness of it, like, for example, having just steel plates. So some people might look at this and say, well, that's not something you would want to rest the neck on if you're working on a guitar, and that's true. But we also decided that we were going to leave it in such a way that you could make virtually any piece you would want with just the benefit of a magnet to be able to be on there. If you wanted something that looked like a neck rest, if you wanted to look something that looked like a small neck rest. We look close there. Let me zoom in. I don't know if I'm getting in. There we go. So if you wanted something that looked like a small neck rest, if you wanted something that was tapered like a wedge, so if you had the fingerboard face down while your peg head was here, this piece here is tiltable in both directions, so you can have a laying on its back or laying on its face. It didn't arrive yet today. Here's another neck rest. And the whole thing is made of steel so that if you're just working with magnets, you can have anything you want attached to your Workstation. People have seen me post things from time to time where I'll just put one of these on so I can keep my tools right on my bench. You know, there's all sorts of possibilities of being able to attach things to this Workstation, which is why we left it plain Jane. Here's another one, Buck from VL Guitars was asking me about this the other day. This is just a simple block that I use here on the tail end of the hold down, which this holds down the tail end of the guitar. This, just to show you on an acoustic guitar. In fact, let me back out just a bit before I do that. If we want to load an acoustic guitar, the same guitar I have over at my fretting bench instead of the archtop guitar that I was in there, I drop my body onto the two supports. You can adjust your height as needed for any given guitar. If I had a really thick guitar, you could drop these all the way down. If you have an electric guitar, you can raise them up. This seems to be a decent height for that. You could adjust it if you needed to, just by turning the thumb nuts. So this just drops in here. I adjust the length of the tool so that I can adjust it for the particular guitar at hand. So that would come back and slide back and forth. I like to center the feet on the ribs and center the tail on the butt end of the guitar that way. Before I do anything else, I then make sure that my peg head support is tilted to match the tilt of my peg head. Here's another quick example of how this has become a tinkerer's dream. My dear friend David Trussman, I have a tendency to always pretty much sit with the peg head right on the peg head support. David Trussman wanted to be able to have this raised off of there. There were other people who had suggested that they wanted to be able, if they wanted to work with the guitar face down, like this, that they didn't want the guitar sitting necessarily, and this telescopes up and down so you can have it at any height, by the way. So somebody didn't want to be able to have to take the tuners off to have a guitar face down. Let me move that back for the moment, and I'll show you a quick solution for that. Another example of the fact that this is a tinkerer's dream. If I have a Martin guitar, I have several of these in here. This is my Total Vise bin. It's like rummaging through the parts department at the hardware store. So here I have a block that I would use. And I've got a few of them for a Les Paul or a Martin or what have you. I don't know if here's a Martin here. So I would just take a Martin guitar, drop that on the peg head over where, let me see if I can just pull that out. Drop that on the peg head. And now I can just rest the guitar face down on the peg head support without even having to take the tuners out. So if you like to make jigs, if you like to make little fixtures, this is your, there's almost nothing you can't figure out a way to do. So here, once the guitar is in there, we strap the guitar in on these two pins with the strap that comes with the workstation. Oh, let me go back to this. One of the things that David Trussman wanted to do was he wanted to come up with a way to be able to have the guitar not sitting on the tuner, so we would have enough room to adjust this. So he came up with these two types of 3D printable blocks, one that would work with a magnet, which I don't have in there at the moment, the other one that would actually snap on to the peg head that's indexed, so it snaps right onto the peg head. You can have it raised up to support the peg head and strap in over the peg head that way. It's a little longer strap. Strap in over the peg head this way. Tighten down, pull on the peg head, have that rested up on the block. Then you come over to this end, which is still loose. This is sitting on the 2 feet. You raise up your peg, your tail block support. This comes down. I lock it on the bar, press down slightly, lock it on the workstation, and now, with everything else locked into place, this guitar can't go anywhere. It's, it's locked in, and it's ready to rock and roll for whatever repair I want to do with it. Getting a guitar back out of the workstation is as simple as that, and it's done. So working with, let me put that back in just to show you the next day. So I had gotten this from Jeff, and the day I got it, I called Jeff and we did a quick video call because I said, I think I'm really going to like this. And I said, and I think it really works really well. At the time, I was using his crossover vise, which now has been reimagined and has become something that is now called the crossover mini, which in the same conversation that I showed him this, in that conversation, we redesigned the crossover vise to be smaller, which is now known as the crossover mini. I think I have, do I have one? Yeah, here it is. This is the crossover mini, which when you buy the full package of the Total Vise workstation, it comes with this and a red dock. This was the original crossover there. That's the crossover mini. You can see how much smaller of a footprint it is by comparison. They both do exactly the same thing. This was a stroke of genius on Jeff's part. But at the time I was using his crossover, I had gotten his workstation, this prototype, and he said, what do you think? I said, I want to show you something. We got on a video call, and I showed him how this thing fit the workstation. Let me put what I do on most guitars while I'm working on them is I take my small jack, I put a tapered wedge in there, slide it underneath. I can unlock it and lift it to support the heel block of the guitar. That supports that in case I want to hammer on frets. Here is a neck rest. You can have multiple neck rests. I know people who use a long neck rest. You put a neck rest under here, bring that up underneath the neck. That supports you there. By the way, just to show you very quickly, because Buck had asked, he wanted to know, he saw in a video the other day, he says, what's that little block you're using? Well, if I'm working on a guitar where I don't want this covering the top of the guitar from working on a crack or from French polishing something or doing a touch up and sanding, this I don't want to be in the way, but I still want it being held onto the guitar firmly. So if I have a guitar that, I picked the wrong guitar because this guitar doesn't have an end pin, but you're going to have to imagine the end pin. I made up, in about 10 minutes time, I made up a block that has a magnet in here, and it fits right underneath my peg head, my tail end support. It has a notch in it to hold down on where the end pin would be, and it just pushes down on the end pin and holds the guitar in securely if I want to be able to have the top free of anything encumbering the top. This, by the way, just to show you more Looth group cooperation stuff, this little piece of engineering genius was the brainchild of Doug Graham, who first came up with the drawing for being able to have a hold down for the tail block that locks onto the workstation and just drops right onto the guitar that way and locks it into place. And that will hold the guitar firmly. Press it down, you're locked in, and you got the guitar not going anywhere. So what I did with Jeff during that phone call was I said to him, I want to show you something. And he said, all right, show me. I put the guitar into the crossover and into my pedestal. Locked that into place. turn the guitar this way, he was sitting right where you're sitting, watching right where you're watching, and I did this. And then I did this. And I won't use the expletive he used at the time, but that was the dawn of what the proper workstation is. Because remember, this was just a favor for me. He said, is there something I can make just for you, just as a way to say thank you? And the moment I did this, he said, can I sell these? I said, be my guest. You know, you're welcome to it. The whole concept of being able to position a guitar now in any position while I'm working, I don't know if that's in your full view or not. So that while I'm working, I can go anywhere on any part of the guitar in any position and never have to bend over in the process. If I want to do a side repair on a guitar, which this one needs a side repair, this is actually a crash dummy guitar that belongs to the shop that we use for experiments. So if I'm working on a guitar and I just want to work on the side of a guitar, I don't have to bend. I had, in fact, you know, this workstation was created, about a little over 2 years now, I think. And I haven't bent at the waist in 2 years. So this, if you wanted to do any work on the body or the bridge, if I'm working on the bridge, I can just stand upright and work here at the bridge and do whatever the work, and I can see 100% of the bridge around me. And there's no more hovering over a bench trying to see around the back of the bridge, flipping the guitar back and forth on the bench, hitting stuff on the bench. It's all right here in front of me. If I want to work, the first time I ever did braces in a guitar with the workstation, I was able to do 9 braces in one sitting by working on a brace over here inside of the guitar. Then I had to work around to the other side and do another brace over here. So I flipped the guitar around and I was able to do my upper cross brace here. Then I was able to do my lower brace in the back over here. Then I was able to do the number 4 brace in the back, which actually this one is loose, back here. And then move it to another position in such a way where I could get just the right height to work on another brace in another given area. And I was able to get, utilizing whatever brace jacks and that kind of thing, I was able to get 7 or 8 braces, maybe 9 braces, all in one sitting, and then move on to my next job, just because I could now position the guitar in virtually any position possible. Another thing I discovered very quickly was the comfort of replacing a nut on a guitar while standing right here. No more was I hovering over the bench, trying to see over the top of the nut, getting the spacing wrong because I'm looking at it from the side. If I want to lay out my string spacing, it's staring me in the face. I'm standing erect. I can move the guitar sideways and see the sides of the nut if I wanted to file that way. If I'm doing fret work and I want to be able to touch up the sides of the neck, I know Trevor Healy likes to do his fret work when he's doing fret work on the side of the frets. He likes to get his guitar sideways like this and just file this way. without having to have the file be, the weight of the file can now sit indexed on the neck. So for me, it suddenly became clear that this was going to be how I worked from now on. And I have not looked back since. I have changed everything about the way I work. My only regret, as far as this is concerned, is that I didn't meet Jeff earlier, because when we moved into the shop in 2018, we spent an inordinate amount of money and time making these custom benches for our workspace here. And we can see them over here, and they're everywhere in the shop. They're beautiful benches. They are, you know, at each one of our stations. This is Sharon's workstation here. There's her benches. I'm moving with a tripod, excuse me. But that's her. If I had met Jeff a year earlier, I wouldn't have spent all of this money on wood, because my whole life would look like this, where I have a pedestal, my workstation, the crossover, this setup right here with a floating bench next to it to be able to have a table nearby. There are other accessories, by the way, that are really cool. Jeff has this, which can go right onto the post of the pedestal. You can have a little tray. He's got another thing where I could add this onto the post to be able to have a table basically at the post of the pedestal. It's and that's what I meant before about Jeff being a tinkerer at heart and open to suggestions. Is I can't tell you how many times during the week we'll talk and he'll say, "What about this? I had an idea that maybe we could do something like that." And he's also responsive, by the way, to people's needs. He, I wish it had showed up in today's mail. It's due to actually arrive tomorrow. He noticed on the internet guys like James Rodman and Buck working on a peg head repair jig, I think based on David Collins's peg head repair jig that he first designed. But James had come up with some really like incredible tilting support that he could put right into the peg head here that wouldn't just tilt forward and back, but left and right. I don't have it to show you yet, but Jeff called me up after he saw that. He goes, I could probably do something like that. So the next one he's sending me has a peg head support that not only tilts this way, but it tilts left and right. So it will position itself anywhere you want on any axis. So when you're lining up a peg head, you don't have to add something to the underside of this. And that's going to be available as an accessory. And that's what I love about Jeff. He hears an idea and he responds to it. That's the funnest part about this whole thing. It's like I said, it's become a tinkerer's kind of dream come true. I'm going to put a pause in it right there because that's the basics of the workstation and how it functions with a guitar in it. You can tilt it, like we said, in virtually any position. I use it for almost everything. It's not just for fretwork, although I do the majority of my fretwork in here now. I actually don't use that bench very often anymore, and I still keep it for the oddball. And plus, it's good to teach at that bench. But most of my work is now being done like this. Here, I'm in the middle of doing this Les Paul here, and I'm doing some fretwork here, and I'm about to replace all of these inlays. This is how Les Paul sits in there. It sits in here and what I would call high in the saddle. These feet can come all the way up so that it still locks in at the tail end. And getting a Les Paul out of here takes seconds. So I'm going to put a pause in it right there because we're going to come back and we're going to look at some other neat tricks and stuff like that. But I also want to show off Dan's video. Does anybody have any questions real quick before we move on?
I had one thing that not a question so much as you were working with that, I realized how bad that tool needs a logo on the side of it. And you're going to need an artist who can sketch it up, but you need to get someone to sketch up the evolution timeline of the monkey leaning over the table, restringing their guitar, and then the
You mean putting it here?
leaning on it, and then finally standing upright at the proper workstation there.
There you go. Well, we've got the two most important logos on them right now. There's that one and that one.
Yeah.
So did I see a couple of questions pass by in the chat? Is anybody monitoring the chat? Or is Ian go back to his lunch?
I got it. How do you simulate string tension on the workstation?
I am going to show that off after we do Dan's video. If you want to go back to the pin with the three of us, if you want to get rid of that camera, I am going to show a full demonstration very quickly, and it's not going to take very long to do this string tension simulation on the workstation. But I'm gonna pull up. There's Luke. Hey Dan.
Hey, Doug.
So you sent me a video. How do I get a share screen? There we go.
I had a question. Where you keep all those guitars on those shelves?
What's that?
You have the big rack where all the guitars that you put in and out.
Oh yeah.
What kind of carpeting do you use in that?
You're talking about
Your storage shelves.
oh, that's just they're the cheapest carpeting we could find at Home Depot. Because when we built this, we knew we were going to use a lot of it. But it's they're all carpeted all the way back. All of these. I don't
What
know
a setup.
all of these come out so that if a guitar is on there, you know, whichever drawer we're working on, the guitar is on there, we can pull out the guitar, do whatever little things we need to on the guitar without having to pull it out and put it on the bench. So if I just wanted to see what my pickup spacing was, or if I just wanted to get an idea of something that was before it was actually being worked on, we could just pull it out. I affectionately refer to it as the morgue, the guitar morgue. The guy who built it with us calls it the axe rack. He has a little label for it up there. But this is just not very expensive carpet at all, you know. But everyone is lined with carpet. I took a tube and, you know, a shipping tube and made a whole ton of these because as soon as we had, I think I can fit 86 guitars in this. And right now it's full, but
Like George Gruen's, but nicer.
does George have a morgue too?
Yeah.
So let me see if I can pull up your video. My video right here. There we go. So can we see this?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, you want me to just hit play and let you talk your way through it?
I think yeah, you might have to stop it though. That thing right there is something that people might want Jeff to make. That's one of the things that Stuart McDonald had that they weren't using. Slow down. It tilts you 360 and it tilts over and you can also swivel it around. So you can do an awful lot of things with that. And I don't think he has that on his site. But I really love that.
Do you remember this, Jeff?
Yep.
What did you call this?
I don't know.
You don't remember? All right. Well, let's take a look at the video of it and see if we can get an idea of how.
It's the table that rotates both directions. I mean, it tilts both directions and it rotates, so you can do a lot with it.
Now what you would end up doing is attaching that plate to a mini.
Oh yeah, you would attach that to a crossover mini.
There's something about this that I like as well or better though. It's just a nice thing to have if you made it.
It looks like it's a solid piece of machinery.
That
How
little-
heavy is
very
it? Heavy?
Ah,
And then locks and unlocks in the center and moves around.
yep.
Did it come with that guitar shaped
Yes,
Uncle
it did.
Wood to it? Okay.
He made that.
So this is like almost like a universal Solera board almost.
Exactly. Small.
So what do we got here?
Go vertically. You can clamp anything you want to. It's good to line up a neck on a body. The same thing.
Okay. So I hit play.
Something weird happened there. I love these because you can put anything on them.
Oh, look at that. What do you got on there?
Little nut sander.
Oh wow. That looks like a juiced up version of the thing that was model machines, right?
But he quit making it Burns, right? He
Yeah,
died.
that's not a Burns though. This isn't a Burns. It looks like
That's a prototype that Stu Mack made, which I think this year finally they're gonna have one out. But this must go back 15 years or more.
oh wow. That looks like a Burns on steroids. That looks great.
It's a pretty nice machine. Why it never got finished, I don't know.
You got a dial. Let me go back. You got a dial indicator on the side of that sucker?
Uh-huh.
Oh wow.
One of these days, Stu Mack's gonna have it. And then this is the bolt-on neck system that I use. I can take all the stuff from the Erlewine neck jig and put it on with magnets.
Oh, you got your supports from your Erlewine jig.
They just, yeah, that being steel, as you know, it just magnetizes right on there.
That's one of the things I love about the workstation is that I can attach almost anything under the sun to it with magnets. So oh, you go in and play. Oh, you got it in the mini. You've got it in the mini. So you're going into playing position.
And that's something that he hasn't made yet. So he just made that for me, I think.
So this is this is the neck holder and bridge assembly that I think is going to wind up on the website. Jeff and I have been talking about it. He sent me a set that I've been playing with and putting it through its paces. I needed to do some measurements in terms of adjusting the height of the bridge section. I think that we need to finalize, and some of that's on me. Because I can even show that off over there when we go back mobile again. So you're working here with, because I can see the bridge assembly towards the tail end over here, where that's where you're stringing up.
You can slide a bass bridge in there, guitar bridge, Strats, Kelly.
Yeah, that's great.
That's all. That's all on my little video.
So how do you find in your how do I go back away from this? How do I? Oh, there we go. Stop share. So how do you find the uses that you are using the workstation most often? Are you using it
I don't know.
like in fretwork mostly, or?
I have docking stations all over the place. I can take that thing out of the jig, go put it in a docking station, put something else like that belt sander on it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a universal tool that I use all the time.
Cool. Excellent.
I think it's going places still.
Yeah, and it's constantly evolving. It's constantly evolving. Are you still around, Ian? You still with us?
Yep,
Okay, do you want to go back to Doug Tennant and go mobile?
sure.
So here was what Dan was just showing off. If I come this way, this people have asked about from time to time. It's shown up on occasion on my Instagram. This here, let me get this one out of the way first. One of the other things I love about this is, while I'm working on a guitar, if I've got something else I need to do, Jeff has these docks that I can mount right to the wall. Can lock a guitar in, and I can walk away and go do something else. And that guitar just sits there until I'm ready for it. So here, let me go back to my pedestal. And the modularity of Jeff's stuff is incredible. So here's what Dan was talking about. This is one of the full workstation beams because I've got what Dan was working on with Jeff. This is a pedestal to hold a bolt-on neck. And if I tilt it the other direction, you should be able to see the back end of it. Where it is just drilled out so it fits the 4 bolts for a standard Fender neck, bolts right to the workstation. The other part of this, in fact, the last time Evan was here, he was playing this. This is.
I was playing it well,
really,
Doug. I was playing it well.
you were playing it very well.
Thank you.
So this is a bridge support that I'm not going to lift it up because I'm at string tension right now. But this, if you unlock this, the bridge moves up and down so you can control the height of the strings against the neck. So you could virtually get whatever action you're looking for and then fine tune your action for each strings. This you would set up like here. I've got a bass, so I've got this set to 35 to a 35-inch scale length, or 36-inch scale length for this particular bass. This particular bass has some serious neck issues that I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want to do with it. So working on it at string tension is going to be kind of important. Here, I've got one of my gizmos that I've come up with to be able to pull back on behind the nut, and then I've got a prop jack sitting up underneath the peg head to be able to push on the peg head. All of this is while string tension is in there, and then as I'm manipulating the neck, figuring out where I've got to deal with what I've got to deal with, I can then go back after the strings are off, and then I can file them. Or I might, what I'm even considering doing is raising this up so that I can level under the strings when they're at tension and just get them up out of the way so that I can deal with the fret tops without having to lose the tension or try to recreate it in this particular circumstance. But to be able to have this where I could set the scale length of the bass up or a guitar up, because these 2 pins and this locking mechanism back here, if I unlock this, I'll be able to slide that bridge right out, put in a universal 6-string bridge, like a hardtail 6-string bridge or a Telecaster bridge, and lock it down, and then just string up a guitar neck in here as well and have it at string tension. This is never going to let go. This you could have suspended in the air without any support and just working on your neck at string tension and, adjusting your rod and checking out how all of the neck is working before you even support the back of the peg head. So this This, I think, is genius that Dan came up with, and we're going to have that hit the Total Vise website at some point. Jeff is waiting for me to give him some final dimensions because I think this needs to come down to be able to have enough maneuverability for different heights of strings. Because rather than I can achieve what I would be looking for if I change the pitch of the angle of the neck, but I don't know if that's necessary to fool with over there. I think we can do that over here. So this is the part of the R&D stuff that is the really fun part. But this is really cool, and this is just one of those things that the workstation allows you to kind of tinker with and come up with new ways of doing things in that spirit. This is probably something else that we should show off. This is a good picture of, that's his standard quick docking station, which we see all over the shop. This is his crossover dock, which is a docking station that allows you to tilt down while you're working. So if I wanted to work at the bench, and I wanted to work on a neck that was in some form of playing position, and I'm not going to do that all the way here because there's another guitar next to us that I don't want to bump into, but I would be able to put this in any position I wanted to, working virtually any position on the bench, tilted or otherwise. It's getting a little crowded over here. But that's another thing here is this is a short rail for what he had become the small instrument workstation, which is a miniature version of the full workstation for smaller instruments, mandolins, ukuleles, banjos, violins, and so forth and so such. It's the same exact system, but it's with a shorter rail. You could also use this just for bodies if you wanted to work only on bodies and just not have the extra length of rail. What I'm doing with it right now, this is one of Luke Heaton's creations. He saw, I think somewhere on the Instagram or something like that, he saw this setup and said, "Oh wow, you can put just a neck on there without us having to make a surrogate body." And so he 3D printed this so that you can attach just a fender neck to the guitar, to the workstation.
Yeah, this was one I actually got a shipment. A guy just shipped me. I got a call and he's like, "Oh, I want you to refret this Strat," and I was like, "Cool." And when I got it, I got just the neck. I was like, "Well, okay."
Well,
I guess
here,
I'm doing just the neck.
that allows me to work on just the neck. And if I'm working on multiple necks, which I actually do have to work on, I'm going to be printing up a whole mess of these because I'll be able to attach this to a bunch of different necks, move one into the workstation just by dropping it in there. It locks here. I don't know that this would be strong enough to handle string tension like that setup.
If you printed it thick enough, it probably could do it.
Okay. So here, then I just strap in and I'm ready to work, just on the fender neck. If I'm doing what I'm doing here, which is true in the board, and then I'm going to be dealing with fret slots and what have you. And that's just a nice portable deal where I could just work my neck. And then when I'm not working the neck, and I want to get it out of the way, I'm tethered. There you go. I can just put it right there. And this just docks for me to be able to get it out of my bench way. That's what happens when you hang surrogate bodies on things that you shouldn't be hanging surrogate bodies on things. There we go. There's another nice deal there. This is the support leg for working on frets and whatnot. If I'm really going to town on a guitar. One of the things, by the way, that a lot of people ask me is with the crossover mini and the workstation. Let me lock that up. So I'm working here. Do I need to have the crossover mini in and the workstation at the same time? I see some people constantly working with both. You don't have to. This comes out, can be moved aside, and I can work just on the pedestal at whatever height I want to work at, or if I'm working at the bench, this can be adjusted to any height I want to. For the sake of comfort, I can lock the workstation in. And one of the things that when we first came up with the workstation, I had actually asked about, where did I just put it? It's the only problem I have is I put stuff down on, I don't remember where I put them.
I'm
Oh,
glad
there it
I'm
is.
not the only one.
So here, this is a telescoping rail support that will lock down the workstation on the leg. And now I've got the sturdiest bench in my shop that I couldn't budge that if I wanted to. I could probably do, if I wasn't so out of shape, I could probably do chin-ups on that. So that rail support was something I asked Jeff about early on, because I said, is there a way to stabilize this? If I'm really going to town on a guitar, I don't get as much deflection, because it is a piece of steel that's 4 feet long, or 3 feet long, 42 inches or so. And he kept telling me, you don't need it, you don't need it, you don't need it. And so about a year went on, and then one day the box shows up, and it was from Jeff at Total Vise. It was unannounced, and this was in it. And I called him up, and I said, Jeff, you did it. You made me a leg support. And he says, yeah. I said, well, what changed your mind? And he said, Dan wanted one. So thank you, Dan. So that is the rail support, for the workstation. This becomes the ultimate guitar workstation for doing frets in, for doing other types of repairs. This is as solid as they come in terms of being structurally sound. Let me get this out of the way for the moment, because I want to do a quick demonstration on string tension simulation. And for now, I'm just going to do this prone because we're doing it on camera. You could, with the crossover, because I already took the crossover out, you could, with the crossover, tilt this whole thing into playing position, which I do. However, for now, let's just do a quick demonstration of how I go about simulating string tension. So I have a guitar that I have supported under the peg head. I have that support lowered. I have the support underneath the neck lowered, and I have a string with a guitar strung to pitch. It has the David Trussman riser on it, which is on Looth prints, if I'm not mistaken. So that riser is on there to hold the neck off the body, off the peg head support. So we are here. So what I do is I get the guitar into playing position, and I get the neck perfectly straight. Here, I'm just going to show you it in prone position because I'm not going to take the time to put the crossover back in. But I would take, let me zero out my gauge. I would take either a straight edge, or in my case, if you have one already, I use the radius gauge, and I set the neck to 0. Right now I've got about a back bow of about 3/1000 of an inch in there, and I want to get it straight. So let me set my neck to be 0 first. So I've got, can you see that on the screen? Is that showing up?
Are you wondering if the number is showing up?
Yeah.
No, no number.
Let me get
With the LCD angle.
And you quickly find when you're working with the workstation, there are a couple of ways to do this. You get your neck situated to 0, which I have here. Let me fine tune, adjust it. So right now I'm at 0. And one of the things I've found, if I have a Martin with a non-adjustable truss rod, or if I have a guitar that I take the strings off and it goes into a back bow or an up bow, I can utilize my jacks here to be able to take relief out. If I had here, if I was working with the guitar, let's say there were no strings on the guitar and I had -3 or negative whatever is on here, I can use my neck support, push up on it until it reads 0 and lock. And I can even adjust this while I'm in there, and between messing around with pushing up on the neck. Luke is going to show you something cool that he came up with that does the same thing. I do it manually, so I can push up on this, lock it, and push myself to 0 if I don't feel like adjusting the truss rod. Especially if I'm doing string tensioning where I'm mimicking string tension, I want to be able to adjust the guitar, not the rod. So very often we find ourselves where we'll get to 0 if I'm doing it without this, and I'm at, right now I'm -2. Let me tighten it up until I'm at 0. I'm at 0. So right now I'm at 0. If we took the strings off of this guitar, of course, we all know what would happen. The neck would bow up like that. The guitar neck would rise up at this end. It would basically raise itself up off the bench or off the workstation, center to center, creating this back bow, which is what Dan Erlewine originally created the neck jig to do. Very often what will happen is people will do this. They'll take the strings off of the guitar and they'll loosen the truss rod until it hits 0 again. That's not string tensioning, that's adjusting the neck just till it reads 0 again. We want to be able to do it as if there are string tensions on, in the same vein that the original wooden neck jig had done. So rather than pushing up on the peg head, we're going to pull down on the guitar like a la Frank Ford used to do by weighting the shoulders of the guitar. So the guitar is suspended right now here, and we've got a perfectly straight neck. If I move this out of the way just so I don't drop it on the guitar, and, of course, our homage to Frank, I'm just going to loosen the strings. I won't take them off now, but I'm going to loosen the strings. We all know what would happen. We would have a situation where exactly what we thought would happen did happen. I have now a neck that has pushed back, that's lifted up off the table and is now reading about a 12/1000 of an inch back bow. So the neck has come down, the peg head has come down, and everything's raised up off the deck here. So in order to recreate 0, and I'm going to take the time just to go back to where we started with string tension. Let me see if I have a tuner here. I do have a tuner there. So let's get back to pitch.
Doug, do you prefer the manual crank as opposed to the machine ones?
I normally use a machine one, but I'm trying to look sophisticated.
Okay, it's effective.
So I'm back at close to being at pitch. When I'm working at the bench, that's my string winder. When I'm trying to look good in front of customers, that's my string winder. So here, we're back at pitch, which means we should be back somewhere to 0 or near to it. We're dead on 0 again. So this is 0. So if I had gone into playing position, I would set my truss rod to be at 0 in that position and then moved it to the regular position and made sure I'm still at 0. But I wouldn't change it between the two. I would just note where I was. So here I'm at 0. Now I do one step. I could continue throughout the whole job using this, but I don't want to hold it and futz with the guitar at the same time. And this is something that I discovered on Amazon for the Workstation. Another example of where magnets are your friend. So here, I'll put it around the back so it's not in our way. This I can attach right to the Workstation with magnets. That basically just attaches right there. It's not going anywhere. I know I'm at 0 at the 8th fret, so I can take this arm, move it to the 8th fret, set it right down in the middle of the strings, set my dial caliper to 0, here, adjust it till it reads 0, like that. So now I'm at 0. Half the time I might do that with my relief gauge and just hold it. But here I want to be able to do it hands-free where I'm not holding both things or having to go back and forth. And I want you to see the numbers. Let me move the camera out of the way. Let me move the gauge back. So I'm locked in at 0. This knob is tightened. And I'm at 0. And we can watch what's going to happen when string tension comes off, of course. We can see the neck flex up. That whole thing's popping up about 50 thousandths of an inch. So physically, the center of that fingerboard's coming up compared to our fixed position of 0. We have, in the past, this piece here that you see below the Workstation. I go down here. This is a second cross beam that's the same, virtually the same as this cross beam here. It does come with a couple of extra features. It's got the holes in it that way. It has, oh, I don't have a second set of them. You can see them here. I'm using them on a different guitar. They have a sleeve that goes over it that locks into place. So this telescopes in and out to be able to fit virtually any size guitar. And I can show you that very quickly. This here, if I take off this side, this whole thing telescopes out. If I can get the guitar out from there, that whole thing telescopes out so I can fit any size guitar I want over the back of this. That'll lock back into place, lock back down on the guitar. These are the brainchild of Looth Heaton, which I'm going to show you in a second. This is how I would work out the workstation. This is actually the workstation upside down. That's where the peg headrest used to be. The tail rest is flipped around, moved up on the station. These two arms are being held. They're pressing on. I've got urethane jaws on them, on Luke's jaws. And they are on the second crossbeam that is available either as an accessory or with the what's called the expansion package, which increases the functionality of the workstation. So now you can work on a guitar body sitting upright. I'll show you in a second. While you're doing neck resets and that kind of thing. But back over here, this is the second crossbeam for the expansion package. We have messed with, and this is the where I go back to the notion that this is a tinkerer's tool. A number of people have come up with all sorts of things. My first, and if you go back on our Instagram, you'll see videos of this. I'm a mechanical guy. I don't know how to draw in 3D to save my life. So I came up with these, which this would rest here. It's got urethane line jaws, and this is just a bracket that goes into a threaded rod with a knob that I could tighten from under here, and I could pull down on the guitar in order to get myself back to zero. That was my first attempt at that. They worked really well. And they're not hard to make, but like I said, this is where it's a tinkerer's dream. Eric Collier came up with these, where he made a aluminum block that he threaded the threaded rod into, gave it a rubber covering, and then you could put it in there and have it holding this way. It's got urethane line jaws on it so it won't hurt the finish. And he did the same thing with a slight smaller footprint. That was his version of it. Daniel Rohr came up with this based on the same concept. This was a 3D print of the same type of thing where it would pull on the shoulders. The current latest, greatest version of this is Looth Heaton designed this based on his experience with working with basses and cellos and stuff that had a rib that you had to be careful about that right angle. So he came up with this. This has, we'll get that out of the way. This has a captured nut in there so I can insert a threaded rod right into there, which I think is genius. I think he learned that trick from Buck. Then I use these. These are zip nuts. These I get from McMaster-Carr, or they're button, I don't know, I think they call them button nuts or something like that, but I call them zip nuts because they zip. They thread, they zip right where you want them and then catch the thread and I can tighten them. So that's a kind of a quick thing for me. So that drops right in there on this shoulder. You could put them farther out on a bigger guitar out here. You could put them at the waist of a guitar if you wanted to, for my purposes. For this type of activity, I'm going to put it right on the shoulder there. I'm going to zip that nut right into place, hold it in place. This one goes on this side. Slides right in, rest against the shoulders of the guitar. Got urethane on the face, it can't hurt anything. And I lock it into place. Now I've got the ultimate control of controlling string tension, because I can do a little bit on this side, and we can even see what's happening with that dial indicator. We go from no tension at all, a couple of turns here, a couple of turns there, a couple of turns here, a couple of turns there, Same thing here, half a turn there, or it's actually just an eighth of a turn. But I'm moving very carefully. Boom, I'm right back at zero. So this neck now is in exactly the position that I was in with zero relief at the eighth fret in the center span of my fingerboard, as if the strings were at tension. And I can cut these off. I can leave the guitar locked in there. That's not going to go anywhere. I can pull on it a little harder if I wanted to create a little bit of a relief in there and then sand it out. If I wanted to create a little bit of a backbone and sand that out, I have the luxury of changing all of that stuff right here. And I'm ready to do my fret work. I can just take this and move it right out of the way. Now I'm ready to do fret work. I'm not messing with dial indicators. I can just take the strings off. I can do the fret tops. I could do the fingerboard if it was on the fingerboard. I can pull the frets and plane the board as if the string tension was on the guitar the whole time. That's how we do string tension on a guitar. It takes longer to explain it than it is to do it, but literally it usually takes me 5 minutes to completely simulate string tension on this workstation. So getting a guitar in takes seconds. Re-simulating string tension takes 2 minutes, and I'm there. That's what I love about this workstation. It's easy. It makes and I can do anything I want with it. If I want to go back to, judging how my neck is doing, I can go put this back on, zero it out, or now that it's, now that we've lost our zero index, I can go back to using my relief gauge to see how I'm doing, if I'm creating relief or I'm not, or if I'm putting relief in the fingerboard or I'm not. So here I'm back right at zero. I don't even know if you can see the numbers there anymore. But I'm right back at zero, and I'm, where I need to be. So that's the answer to the question of how you simulate string tension on the workstation. In order to do that, you do need the expansion package. Now, just a quick last thing before I hand it over to Luke. If I get this guitar out of the way, as we mentioned earlier with the pedestal, which the one thing I will say about the pedestal, and I know Jeff doesn't like it when I say this, the pedestal, if I can't, my advice to people is if you can't bolt it to the floor, don't get a pedestal, because this pedestal is magic when it's bolted to the floor. You can use it when it's just got the wings to keep it from tilting over, but it becomes a little wobbly when you're working on the guitar. In those circumstances, I recommend getting the swing pedestal. The swing pedestal is attached to your bench, and it's as solid as your bench is, and it's not going to go anywhere. But for my druthers, it's 4 holes in your garage floor that you can fill later. This is the ultimate in stability. This, by the way, the upper portion of the pedestal comes out, and I can drop my whole workstation in to the lower part of the pedestal. And I can have the perfect height for working at a guitar that has, let me get you, let me do this from the other side. Let me get you on the other side so you can see. So here, if I'm working a neck reset, I can get the workstation upside down, tilted, right where I need it. It's hugging the guitar in the center, thanks to loose things, or I could use what I originally used was spool clamps with the same thing. These telescope out to any size I need. This leaves the shoulders of the guitar free for, let me grab a neck. And then everybody here knows what a neck looks like on a guitar, but let me just grab a neck. I don't even think this is the neck for this guitar, but it's a neck. So here, I could be pulling sandpaper, doing my neck work, and I could do it with this. I could move the workstation up or down to whatever height I needed it, because my T can move up and down and slide. All these components slide, and I could be working here at the height I need for pulling sandpaper, working on my neck. I don't have to be bending over. That whole dance that we all do where we're sitting at a bench, holding a guitar body, pulling paper with one hand while we're holding a guitar and trying to hold the neck in place and hold the guitar and keep the guitar from moving, and holding and pulling sandpaper while the guitar is dancing around the bench. This, once it's locked in place, isn't going anywhere. It's as solid as a rock for me to be pulling my sandpaper. Since I started doing this, my neck reset work has been as solid as it's ever been. I don't miss neck joints anymore. I don't have mistakes. My neck setting has been more predictable since I've been doing it this way. And that's the same way the setup would be turned upside down. The workstation would be turned upside down for you to be doing neck setting work and holding just the body. Did I see a question pass by? Something about fingerboards?
Yeah, you got a question in the chat.
How can
about
you
the
show
string
that
tension.
arc relief is the same under tension by pulling down on the upper bout? Could it not change the arc of the neck differently than actual string tension?
Let me see. How can you be sure that the arc relief is the same as under string tension by pulling down the upper bout? Could it not change the arc of the neck differently than actual string tension? Well, the string tension pulls on the neck, pulls the neck up. So pulling the body down does the same thing because the peg head is supported. This is Frank Ford. This is all based on Frank Ford's old methodology of weighting down a guitar with the guitar suspended above the bench in order to create string tension rather than having a guitar that's strapped in at the body, pushing up on the neck alone. This is pulling down on the body, creating the same shape of the neck, and we're increasing the tension on the body in the same way. The only way you get back to zero when you're doing this with the dial indicator is by putting the neck under the same pressure or the same tension as when the strings were there. So if the strings are there at string tension and the neck is zeroed out with the truss rod, you release the strings, the neck's going to change its shape. You pull the body back down until you're at zero. The neck, by definition, is at the same shape. There's no change in arc because there's no arc. The neck is perfectly straight. The only time the neck would be different is if you do the methodology where people will have a guitar, they'll set their neck to zero, they'll be working, fretting at a bench, they'll be working without string tension, they'll take the strings off the guitar, the neck does this, they loosen the truss rod so that the neck sits back down to straight. But your tension on the neck is different because your truss rod is looser than it was before. The whole idea behind simulating string tension is that you get to fret the guitar or do your fret work, your fingerboard, your fret leveling work or your fingerboard work as if the string tension is there with the truss rod in the same tension, the same position as if the strings were on the guitar. Because the truss rod's not changing in this circumstance. That's the magic. So I'm not sure I understand the question. How can I be sure that the arc/relief is the same as under string tension? Because I started with strings and it was zero, and I pulled down on the body until it was zero. I didn't change the truss rod throughout that whole procedure. So it's the truss rod that would be different under those circumstances. Did I answer the question for whoever asked that? Okay, great. Is there any other questions? You want to pull down that pin for Doug Turner?
Yeah, am I putting up Luke?
Yeah, we're going to put up Luke. So I'm going to pass it off to Luke and let him show off what he's got going on.
Ian, do you want to? Yeah, there we go. So I was going to show just the real quick what Doug was talking about, the neck rest. So in my setup, as far as doing the string tension, whatever, the neck rest I use in the middle. I started out right after I got it. So this is the short support. I would just I drilled a hole right in the center of it for a rod for the neck rest, so that instead of dealing with instead of loosening it and just rising this up and down, I could just have a threaded piece. And I purposely put a little bit of wobble in it so that you could follow the angle of the neck. And I liked this just for me a little bit better, just because like if I were hammering in frets, which I do, when you just use this piece, it tended to creep down every time you hit it. And I always just felt like it was kind of the neck was giving down as I was hammering. And so then I designed, basically this is the new version of that. And it's all 3D printed. It's got a hinged piece here so that it can follow that angle, but yet it's really secure. It doesn't have any of the side wobble now. But it also, like if you take it out of your workstation, it folds flat down on. And then this is the plug that just drops down into that short support. And the other side, it has a hole for it, so you can actually use the prop jack if you want. So instead of using this piece, you can actually just flip this over, drop that in, and the prop jack drops right into that hole, and you can use it on the back of the neck or back of the headstock, wherever you wanted. So it's just kind of
that'll also work on the new prop jacks.
Yes. So the old and the new one are the same plug, and
Uh-huh.
then if you wanted, this is 1/4 inch thread, so you could actually thread this rest onto the prop jack as well.
Oh wow!
If you wanted to do it that way, so you could put the prop jack instead of this threaded piece, if you want.
Oh wow! You could put that that neck rest with the tilting. You
can put this on top of the prop jack.
Oh, cool! And if it hasn't escaped anybody, that prop jacks are now available at stumac.com.
I doubt anybody's missed the memo at this point.
So you have that's your neck rest for the workstation.
Yeah. So
you also have the other goodies for the workstation, right?
Well, I've got the piece that you just showed, so the Strat one, and I'll be doing one for the 3-bolt fender neck.
Nice.
Here shortly. So that one's I'll actually flip it so that you'll use these 2 bolts, and then it'll be the single here, because that'll just work out better. So I'll use the same footprint, just have a different thread pattern or hole pattern.
Can I ask you a question?
Honestly, I wonder if I'll just add it to that one.
If you just added one more hole for the second bolt, you would give yourself a print.
Yeah, I just thought about that just myself as I said it.
Okay.
I'll just add one. I'll just add another hole right in that center, right in between, and that'd actually work for the 3 or the 4 full. So that'd do the Fender necks, bass, guitar, everything.
Are you gonna put those in your store?
Yes, I'll put these on. I'm also gonna throw this on the Looth print as well. So if anybody just wants to print it on their own, they can just print it. But then if you don't want to print or don't want to deal with it, I'll have them up for sale.
Awesome.
And I'll be using it'll actually be they'll be this color. This is the final color. These are all, I have a whole bunch of these in different colors and prints and materials that were my test prints that not all of them worked. And so it was
the neck rest part and these those are the hold downs?
Yeah.
So they all come in a kit, right? You don't buy them separately.
And then I also have I'd also put the bottom spool pieces. So if you want to use these, I liked having these just as a spacer for some guitars. Like if you want to use it on the waist, so you have like a guitar with a bigger curve on the back. Yeah. You don't feel like putting on that flat bar. You can use these, put the guitar in between that.
Oh, that's nice.
So, and then I've also used these to clamp onto the bottom of the butt end of the guitar. if you want to work on the center seam where the end block is having an issue.
Right.
That's what kind of got the idea of this. Is I was working on a guild, the end block had been shoved in, and so I needed to be able to have full access to that lower block.
So with
And so
either one of the cross beams, the main, you can get rid of the feet on the main cross beam, put those in at the butt end. Also, and just use it. Oh, do you have it set up?
So you can replace these two right here. So you just pull these out, drop those in, or you could even just drop them on the inside hole if you didn't want to pull them out. And now you could just clamp right to the end and have that end block space open.
And then you just eliminate the tail block support if you needed to work on it.
Then you just drop that off.
If you need to spin the guitar upside down and drill a hole through the block for a pickup or something like that.
Yeah, that was the other thing I thought was this would be nice for doing the pickup installs, because now you have that full. You could just take the drill, go right in here.
Actually, you could go in. Actually, you should flip the guitar upside down and drill down. Right?
Yeah, you could do it vertical.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the idea, having the spool bottom, is you could have that spacer there, basically. So it's the same thickness as the rest.
Oh, okay.
The stock rest.
I could raise your guitar up off the workstation if you wanted.
Yeah. And then if you're using if you got the old Gibson arch tops or whatever, it'll give you that clearance. And then for the let's see, I guess let's show you we'll go into the cello and because that's kind of what I've got for the guitar stuff. Where I spend a lot of my time with workstations actually in cellos and basses. So let me grab my other workstation.
Can you eliminate Luke's computer pin and just pull up the whole workstation thing? Does I want to see that?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. And so lots of times I won't have the crossover in this, but I put it in so that we can kind of see it. Just because basses are tall enough, you usually don't need help getting them even higher. And I could pull out the upper piece and drop it down, but I'll show you this way. So the rig that I've got for this is I have the same hold downs. I've just made another lower block that's taller because I have to compensate for that big arch on the back of a bass. And I just put them on the extensions. That way I can pull these on and off. If I don't need it, they're out of the way. And I can leave the cross piece in place. And then this is the other piece that.
Oh, and you have the expansion package cross piece shown there with the extensions. Can you spin the workstation so we can see that? Because I don't think there we go.
Let's see. Yeah, so you can see that there's the standard width. I don't know. I think it went out of screen, but there's the standard width, and then the extensions. They just have another piece that you can put on. And I like having extras of these, just because I've done, now I have a set with hold downs just for the guitar hold downs on them. So I drop this onto guitars or cellos. I've got the other, those other pieces I showed before with the cross piece. These can now drop onto this or this.
Oh, wow.
Either cross piece I can just drop them onto. I can leave these loaded up.
Oh, so
and these were actually
that main section there. That main section is the sleeve for the expansion tee. You made the thing that's on the end of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is just the extension piece, and this one actually is one that I rigged up. My dad has a welder. I just welded a nut on, so because I needed a bunch of them, and so I just did that one on my own. But yeah, so you can, it's just square tubing, so you can just add to it. Like you said, it's the Tinker Toy. You also showed me a trick that I never knew of the other day. You showed me a trick where you used the sleeve, the extension sleeve, and you attached it differently, and it became a wing. That blew my mind because I never even thought of doing that. Okay, so what I did is I just take one of the standard extensions, and then pull the T out, the handle, and then I've got some little, and these were just jimmy rigged together. This is just a piece of all thread that I super glued a wing nut on, so I can have another bolt, and I run it through I run it through the cross piece first, and then onto the welded nut on the bottom of the extension. And you could do this either direction. You could do this on top or below. But now you've got, with that extension pack, now you have, wings that will rotate and latch on, just like they were doing with the tubing,
Yeah.
the perforated tubing. So it's the same idea, but this, when you buy the expansion pack, you have these
Yeah,
with you.
already
You just
have
need
those.
an extra bolt.
Yeah, you just showed me that the other day, and I just blew my mind.
Yeah. And so, so it was one of those, I thought, well, I got the piece, I just need the bolt, and so I just had the all thread and a couple wing nuts and made a bolt. But you could definitely go down to the hardware store and, get a, if these were a little bit longer, they would work for that, but they're just short enough they won't go through that piece.
Okay.
So
You hear that, Jeff?
I don't know that you'd want them all longer though, because it's one of those where it's like,
that's like
maybe
a trip that's a trip to the hardware store.
Yeah. And it's one of those where it's like maybe just on the extension wings, but everywhere else I like them short. I've actually shortened a couple of mine.
You could actually, part of your kit, didn't you have a knob that you had a captured nut in that you could use on a piece of all thread, and that would
you could do that. So the kit comes with two. Actually, and it comes with four of the knobs, 3D printed knobs with the 5/16 nut in it. So you could just throw a piece of all thread in there and then just cinch them up.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be easy enough. Yeah, that's why I throw in some extra knobs, just because you never know what what the next invention is and the new way you're going to use it. So anyway, I've got where did I just set it? So the other piece that I have that you don't have is the hold down for the cellos and basses.
That's cool.
So it's basically the same idea, just on steroids. And this one, because of the length of the instruments, it goes right up on the end. So here's the standard headstock piece, and then this goes on the exact opposite end.
Okay.
And so now I basically have almost the same thing, just on both sides. And so for cellos, you can actually just take, and I won't actually need these in the way. Just drop those. Oops, sorry. And so for cello, I got to slide this one just a little bit forward. I have an end pin that you don't normally have to deal with. You can actually, I've got a cork piece that I've got here that I use sometimes, but a lot of cellos, I don't actually need it, because I can just angle that right till it hits the back. And then just same idea, can strap in the scroll, drop this down, and now, just like the guitar, it's totally secured. And with the crossover, you can now tilt it any way you want. I've got this one piece in the way here. Let me move it. But just as the same are all the standard articulations, I can now tilt this down to work on the cello nut, or peg work, peg box work, all that, or even doing rib repairs or something. I can have it on the same tilt,
right.
In the same orientations that you do with all the guitar stuff. So it's really handy for doing that type of work on these. And also, I've been able to, flip this thing, rotate it just like on the guitar, rotate it on its side. And lots of times when I put these on the side, I do put in these, or something similar, and, kind of capture the side, so that I don't have to worry about it. Don't have to worry about it sliding off on me, or sliding or shifting at all if I'm actually pushing on the ribs. Because a lot of the cello families, these bouts will open up and they'll actually distort a little bit. So when I glue them, I have to push in and then clamp it down. So I need to be able to really push against this.
Right.
Then I'll show you the bass real quick.
Getting an instrument in and out of this thing that fast is just To me,
That's the part, like it, especially for, when I first saw this, this is the instrument I wanted it for, because you have something this big, you have to clear an entire bench, just to get it in the vicinity. And then, just the same as a guitar. So this is just as quick as a guitar, but now we have, instead of being a neck rest, it sets right on the neck block.
oh wow, look at that, right underneath the fingerboard.
Yep, go right underneath the fingerboard. This is a bigger, thicker strap. So this is the XL of those Volet straps.
Yeah.
Because I tried the standard one and it was just a little too flimsy. Like the bass would start to creep.
Mm-hmm.
But now you can take, and now you have that. Now you got a full size bass in here. Well, this is 3/4 size. Fulls you still could fit a full in here. But full sizes are rare to see. And then my, of course, favorite part, because basses love to have neck problems, is, I can now tilt this up, and this is where I need to have that other piece out to get it low enough. Oh, here we go. Drop that down. Get my light out of the way for a second. Oops. And these you have to be, basses are a lot about just brute force. So now you can have it, standing up and in a standing position while you're working on it. If I can get it up off the floor. There we go. So there's your full, off the floor. You can now, with the pedestal, I can now move it around, put it in a bass. You can put it in, you can put it in plain position, so you can have that tilt to it, move it around. Whoops, got the vise in the way. I stick my extra vise down around the pedestal, and I always hit it when I move it that direction.
Does this bass have a tailpiece on the peg head?
Yeah, because I'm working on it.
Is that a custom modification?
Yeah, for a moment. Yeah, it when this came in, the neck was busted off.
You just pull the strings on it, and you just put the tailpiece up by the peg head. I see what you do.
Yeah. So there's the strings are still on it. They wanted to use them again, and I was like, okay, that's fine. And so that's why I just have it coiled up there. But yeah, this one, the neck was broken out of it when they brought it in. So I had this. There's a picture of it I posted on Instagram, I think a week or two ago, of just the body in here standing up as I was working on it, doing the deal. And I'll be doing a video on YouTube. I'll be showing this repair. So yeah,
you can virtually spin that bass 360 while it's in that workstation.
Yeah. So you can, I can now turn this way if I want to do, work on if I want to sit here and work on the ribs or do touch up right here. I can work from, with it in this position, actually can work from the back of it, without being too far away. Or I can work from, same deal, having it in this position. I can now work from this side.
You need a wider store though.
That's gone. Yeah.
Who's your helper here?
That's Maverick.
Hey, Maverick.
He's the gray one, and if the black dog comes over, he's Berkey. So yeah, that's the main as far as how I use it.
Not in my wildest dreams when we first came up with this did I ever envision somebody sticking a bass in this thing and upright.
Yeah, it really is it's a pretty big lifesaver as far as like when you start doing, some of the repairs I do on these, just because it is, being able to put it like this and work here or rotate it around, work on this lower bout and not have it, tipping around on top of a bench top or, just moving around in general. I can stick it down where I can work right there on the butt end at a height where I'm not hunched over it. Just like you said, my posture's got a lot better since I've had this.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like I said, I haven't bent over in 2 years.
But yeah, so this is an old K bass from the 1940s. It's getting restored.
So you have this kit that you have, which consists of the hold downs. How many pieces are in that kit? Are all of those other
Do you want to
pieces in
unpin
the kit?
the one deal there, Ian?
Which
The one
one?
on the store.
Just unpin the phone. You can put it all back. Then I can show it better if I'm not trying to stare across the room.
So how many pieces? So you showed those two risers that you used, and along
Yeah,
with
so I've got so you get the two hold downs and the spools and 4 of the knobs, and they'll all match color. These are all just my misprints and prototypes that you're seeing here. They'll all be this color, except for the first 4 batch are they're this dark blue, but the rest are going to be this gray. But you'll have 4 of the knobs like this, the 2 hold downs, and the 2 spools like this, and then you'll have the neck rest wherever I just set it. Where did I just move it to? Anyway, let's see. Is the one still? Oh, there we go. You'll have the neck rest like this. You'll have the neck rest, and then the insert that goes into the workstation.
Okay. And those, so that you'll have the 2 hold downs, what I call the hockey pucks. Those are the spacers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what about those blocks that, or are those just for violin and stuff, or cello?
The other ones, if you want them, you can message me. I'll throw in a couple. It's one of those where I think it's mostly for the cello and the violin world and basses.
Yeah, because
you could use them for something like if it's something you want to play with. You're doing like a lot of arch top guitars. You could put just a memo or something, or I think you can leave a comment or something, or just find me on Instagram and tell me that you ordered one and you wanted, 2 of the arch top ones.
Yeah,
and I'll throw them in for you because they're not a hard print.
Right.
But yeah, they're just like I have 2 different heights of those. I have the height like this that I meant for bass because I have so much arch I have to accommodate for. But then I also did another one that's just half as high, so it'd be more for like cellos, or if you have an arch top guitar that you wanted to do something, and they're rounded this way so that you can put them anywhere in that curve of that arch, and if you need to rotate them slightly to get them in a better position, you can.
I get you. Okay.
So that's why there's a curve this way on the bottom piece. It was just because sometimes you have a real curved area in there you're trying to fit.
Right. Excellent. Thank you, Luke. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got Ian? Are you with us?
I am.
Do you want to walk everybody through how they can interact with Total Vise?
So we decided a while back to start thinking about doing some sponsorships to help fund new and exciting things in the Looth group. And we've had a lot of discussions about it. And I want to make everybody aware that we've talked about this multiple times, and we've all agreed that it's not, we're not taking on all comers as sponsors. Like, they really have to, for somebody to be a sponsor, they have to have something that, the leadership actually believes in. And Jeff and his product with Total Vise totally fits that bill. Everybody in leadership winds up using Total Vise gear. So it was perfect for first try for this program. So Jeff, I'm going to show everybody what they can expect from this, and I'm just going to share a screen really quick. And oh boy, does everybody see on my screen?
Yes, we do.
All right, great. So everybody that's been to the website recognizes this page here. This is the feed. This is where all of the scrolling and finding out what's going on happens. And you've probably checked out this little area over here. And one of the things that has changed is we have sponsored pages and Total Vise. This button right here. which will,
If you scroll down a little bit, did I see it down? I saw a blue vise.
yep, we'll come back to that though. But so anyway, if you click this button, you're going to go to this sponsor's page. This sponsor is Jeff from Total Vise. And up here, you can navigate to any of Total Vice's various social media offerings. You can visit the Total Vise forum on our website here. You can send Jeff an email. You can visit his website, little description. This first batch is Total Vise featured products. And Jeff is going to be able to come in here and through the front end, he's not actually going to have to log into the website as an admin, but through the front end, he'll be able to, every time he adds a product or has something to add, he can add something here. And this is actually going to kick out to Jeff's Total Vise website, and you can check out the stuff there. So all of these posts here, those are actually going to Jeff's website. We've got Total Vise video here. So hero
For any kind of work you have to do.
and then recent Total Vise posts. Now these posts are actually posts on our website, and Jeff is going to be able to come in and through the front end be able to add posts to our website on a limited basis to announce things like new vices or new events or sales or whatever it is he wants to offer. And that's going to look something like this, which is when you go here, this is actually on our website. And this is just an article about the StewMac pedestal conversion plate to put a docking station on the StewMac pedestal if you've got one of those. So, and then as you scroll down, we've got related content. Now, every piece of content that we tag with Total Vise is going to wind up going in our archive. So not necessarily everything that Jeff puts on here, but certainly things that he puts on there, but also things that just kind of happen organically. And that's going to look like this. This is a search result that is everything that's going on with that's been tagged with Total Vise. So we've got a Looth print, a video, another Looth print, different article, another Looth print, more Looth prints, another and a video. So any related items that get tagged with Total Vise will wind up landing there. Got some images. Can check out images that Jeff puts up there. And then probably you can contact Jeff here. You can send him a message. And then probably one of the more unique features of the new sponsor functionality is Jeff is going to have his own forum here. So the Total Vise forum, in addition to being a great way for us to talk about, new uses and new widgets and new ideas for the workstation or the vices or whatever it is, a place to just come and talk about it. But Jeff can come here and interact with people on here. So if you have a question for Jeff, post it on here and maybe let me know, and I'll show it to Jeff, and we can get a reply or something. But this will be a good way for you to communicate with Jeff on questions or ideas that you have for additions or whatever it is. This is the spot. You can find this forum also. You don't just have to go to his page, but right now it's a little bit different. This will change. But we've got sponsor forum, and that's just going to kick to, right now there's only Total Vise, but this will get you back to the forum. Any questions about any of that? All fairly clear?
That's good.
All right. And then last but not least, for anybody that doesn't know, we've got the new community shops. And so we've got people making widgets and stuff. Some of you have seen the Proppers relief gauge. You can certainly buy that here. And then also what Luke was just demonstrating for the workstation is available here. And yep, you can just add it to the cart and it's on discount right now. So if you feel like it's something for you, I'd highly recommend grabbing that before Luke figures out how much shipping costs. So
What I think is fascinating about the forums is not only are you going to be able as it relates to Total Vise, because not only are folks in the Looth group going to be able to interact with Jeff, where if they have ideas or they have questions they can put in there, he can go in there and interact with the Looth group. But it's also, Jeff and I had been talking for quite some time about, wouldn't it be great to have a place where all of these neat ideas that people are doing with his tools, and most notably with the workstation, for coming up with all sorts of widgets, coming up with all sorts of asking all sorts of questions. I get them all the time. Or, hey, Doug, I just got my workstation. What would you recommend to be the kind of the initial set of calls that I make for the supports? What's your go-to for the typical set of calls that I should make for it? And having it there, if you've got a question about it, other people have a question about it. So it'll be a great repository for all of those not only those questions but people's ideas and people showing off different widgets they can share with each other.
well, I think that's about it for me. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
I just wanted to thank Jeff
Yeah.
because I won the workstation around Christmas, and I've been going crazy with it.
Awesome.
So I just wanted to say hi and thank you.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Jeff, while you're on there, I have a question. We can't hear you if you're talking, Jeff.
Well, you can't.
No, we can't. My question was, is the other, like, you build for the archery guys and the gunsmiths, are they coming up with all these crazy stuff in their shops too?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of customers sharing ideas and they go back and forth. It's really it's good. I listen to my customers. They give me, some of them end up to be a home run.
Awesome.
I'll attest to that. Jeff does listen to his customers. Can I show a sneak peek for something that hasn't been announced yet? Do you want to pin the Doug to it real quick?
Let's see if I can find it.
So this is something that came out of Jeff's interaction with Bo Hannum when Jeff came up with the finishing station. Bo and I, among others, Jeff Jewett and everybody was involved in the evolution of the finishing station, which is this, and it's a great tool. It's a fantastic tool, but it's big, and it's one of those things where I think is nothing does better than this tool for a finishing station than this. There is no other one that does everything that this thing does. Make sure that everything's locked. But this one works in virtually any position you would ever want to finish a guitar in. You have this rotisserie here that would hold, say, a body or a neck there, which would work that way, as we can all imagine. And then, of course, it spins like a carousel, and that tilts forward, and you can use it here. This was Bo's idea, to have something that he could turn the guitar, as opposed to do a sunburst, as opposed to turning the gun. And this has been a wonderful addition to the shop, but it's one of those things where if you're Loothing in the second bedroom, if you're Loothing in your garage, if you're Loothing in your basement, it's hard to have enough room for that unless you have a big spray booth. So there was a piece that Jeff had created just for Bo as a personal request, and that's getting back to the whole thing about Jeff is one of those people who listens to his customers and will respond to special requests and be happy to do things for them. Bo asked for this. And I called Jeff up a few weeks ago and said, why isn't this on the website? Because I started using it and I fell in love with it. This is something called, what do you call this, Jeff? The Universal T?
Yeah, the universal thing.
Yeah, the Universal T section. This works in conjunction with these. This is for either a fender neck or a fender body. He also has one, let me grab it real quick, for the for an acoustic body, which I have somewhere over here. So he's got one for an acoustic body. He's got one for an electric body or neck. This is a standard 4-bolt fender neck right here. This is for your body, you know, your boltless body. You can use it for a dovetail body as well. This slides in here like this. So this will act as a carousel or a rotisserie while you're spraying a body. And of course, it'll move 360. You can spray on it either way. And this is what is now going to be known. This, along with this, will be known as the small shop finisher station. And that's coming soon to the Total Vise website. So that's going to be like the world's greatest little finishing station for you to be able to bolt the neck to, bolt the body, do your spraying, do your touch up. Bo uses it for pore filling, you know, and you just sit it right at the bench. You can move it over to, you know, a crossover, whether it be the crossover dock or the crossover mini. And that's the wonderful thing about Jeff's stuff is that it's all universal in terms of its fit with one another. So you can move that to this here, have it in the crossover, move it in any position and have it rotate and spin virtually in any position you want for all your finishing work right there. So that's a sneak peek as to what's coming.
Right there.
I'm sorry, Jeff? Yeah, that is. That's really going to be cool. That's going to be the small shop finisher station right there.
Cool.
So that's the sneak peek to end things with.
Good deal.
So if you want to unpin that, we can then say goodbye.
Thank you. Very good.
Jeff, thank you for joining us.
That's really great, Jeff. So Ian, are you saying that to make orders now, we do it through the Looth group, right? Not contacting Jeff?
No, you contact Jeff for Total Vise orders. If you want the add-ons that Luke came up with, you go through store.loothgroup.com. But Total Vise products are still ordered primarily through Total Vise.
So with that, I think if we could ask everybody to unmute and thank Jeff for joining us, and thank Dan, and thank Luke for doing such a great job, as well as Dan. And thanks for joining us today.
Jeff.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Luke.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks,
guys.
Thanks.
Very
Thanks,
good.
guys.